national prayer service yesterday in D.C. led by Bishop Mariann Edgar Budde, who made this plea to the newly elected president. Watch.
Mr. President, millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals.
Oh, he didn't like that. Trump did not get the message, and now he's demanding an apology. So here to respond, please welcome Bishop Mariann Edgar Budde. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let me ask you this. You seem to have more fearlessness than anyone in Congress right now, ma'am. What made you decide to use that opportunity for this message, or didn't you have any apprehension about it?
My response, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be with you today. My responsibility that morning, yesterday morning, was to reflect, to pray with the nation for unity. And as I was pondering what are the foundations of unity, I wanted to emphasize respecting the honor and dignity of every human being, basic honesty and humility. And then I also realized that that unity requires a certain degree of mercy and compassion and understanding. And so knowing that a lot of people, as I said, in our country right now are really scared, I wanted to take the opportunity in the context of that service for unity to say we need to treat everyone with dignity. And we need to be merciful. And I was trying to counter the narrative that is so divisive and polarizing, and in which real people are being harmed.
Okay.
Bishop, I was struck by your tone. You were so gentle, you were so respectful, you were very demure and very mindful. And you said all of this with Trump, J.D. Vance, and their families, including Melania, an immigrant, and Usha Vance, a child of immigrants, sitting there.
Right.
And their reactions were very visible for all of us to see. You could see their faces. Were you paying attention to how your message was received by them in that moment? And do you think it sunk in even a little bit?
I've been preaching for a long time, and I've long since given up trying to read people's body language as I'm preaching. Because I would be wrong most of the time. So I don't know. I was aware that obviously people were listening, but I couldn't allow myself in that moment to I just had to keep going, right? I had what I felt was on my heart to say, and I had to leave it to them, to all of us, to take from whatever my words were, to heart in whichever way they could, and leave, as they say, leave the rest to God.
Bishop, predictably, you seem to strike a nerve. President Trump initially said yesterday it was, quote, not a good service, unquote. But overnight, he took to social media to say you were a, quote, radical left hardline Trump hater, unquote, that you brought the church into politics and that you owe your church and the public an apology. Now, given your role, it doesn't seem surprising that you would speak out for the marginalized, as anyone who's read the Bible and knows the path of Jesus. But do you think your message is being misconstrued and politicized?
Well, sure. Yeah. But I think if you read what I said, and I mean, how could it not be politicized, right? We're in a hyper political climate. One of the things I caution about is the culture of contempt in which we live, that immediately rushes to the worst possible interpretations of what people are saying and to put them in categories such as the ones you've just described. That's part of the air we breathe now. And I was trying to speak a truth that I felt needed to be said, but to do it in as respectful and kind a way as I could. And also to bring other voices into the conversation, which voices that had not been heard in the public space for some time.
And Bishop, given that we live in such a divided time, as you've reflected on, and knowing how this message might be received by Trump supporters, I wonder if your words may have had more impact if they were shared one-on-one with the president, and was there an opportunity to have that conversation?
I've never been invited into a one-on-one conversation with President Trump. And I would welcome that opportunity. I have no idea how that would go. I can assure him and everyone listening that I would be as respectful as I would with any person, and certainly of his office, for which I have a great deal of respect. But the invitation would have to come from him.
Bishop, as part of their crackdown on immigration, the Trump administration has already overturned policies to now allow ICE to go into what have been deemed legally sensitive areas, including churches, schools, hospitals, to apprehend migrants. As a woman of the cloth, how do you feel that the church, which has been a place of sanctuary since at least 511, and it actually predates Christianity to Roman and Greek times, that the church is no longer viewed that way by some?
Right. It's an interesting. It's heartbreaking on one level. Let me be clear that it was never encoded in law. Any of the police officers and officials could come into our churches if they felt they had just cause. Now, they would need a warrant. They would need all the legal requirements to enter into such spaces, at private spaces, as they would be necessary elsewhere, because churches are public spaces. They could go into them always. But you are right. It has been a practice. It has been an unwritten policy that there are some places, and particularly churches, schools, and other places where all sorts of people gather, to create a sense of safety and to allow people's basic human and spiritual needs to be met. We have a lot of churches in our particular denomination that are that meet the needs of immigrants and other vulnerable populations, and we need now to be especially mindful and to make sure that basic human rights are protected and people's needs can be met. And we will continue to do that work.
Thank you so much for showing people what empathy looks like. Thank you very much. Our thanks to Bishop Mariann Edgar Budde.